It's officially time to start talking about music on Road Gang Radio with Lindsay, Lawler, Jimmy Mack. Let's take it away.
Never heard of him.
Don't know who you're talking about. Some folks actually, a lot of folks will know who I'm talking about right now, though, Lindsay. And by the way, there is a really good description in the bio I'm going to be reading to kind of explain what we were talking about in regards to that, being able to kind of crack a joke and make a pun without it turning into a novelty song. In 2024, Dave Wilbert was one of the most played independent country artists on Music Row, Breakout, and the CDX True Indie charts.
Yeah, buddy.
He built on that success. By the way, he blends relatable storytelling with a smooth country vocal. His musical style strikes at a nice balance between what you talked about, Lindsay, that sense of I've heard this before, and yet at the same time, it feels as if it's fresh. We've talked about the idea that if you want to do something new, package it in something familiar and nostalgic. He released his new single and album, Live from America. It's Saturday night on June the 20th of this year. It is rooted in his personal journey and his life on the family farm just west of Nashville. The single, by the way, in many ways, is just really fun. It just has a kind of let's just have a good time. There's been something happening in movies and music recently, Lindsay, where the quality has gotten excellent, but the values have gotten a little bit older in regards to that kind of just good old-fashioned having a good time. Whether you're from the countryside and bonfires or the big city lights, Live from America Saturday night, in many ways, and they say this, and I'm willing to, I say it's true, is an anthem for the heartland of America. Dave Wilbert, his true-to-self approach, joins us this morning. We're thrilled to have you. Good morning to you, Dave.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on air. I really appreciate it, guys.
Hey, Dave. Wonderful to have you. I'm curious. I just saw real quick. We'll dive in here. You did live in Franklin. Do you still, or where do you live now?
So I did live, when I first moved to town from Indiana, I lived in Franklin, Tennessee. And then eventually moved out in Williamson County, which is also Franklin. So, so I moved out in the country, Williamson County, and stayed in Williamson County for a good long time. But within the last year, moved out further. I have a farm in Hickman County, a little town called Centerville, home of Minnie Pearl.
Yeah, so, buddy.
That's where I am.
I live in Franklin, Tennessee. I'm a songwriter here in Nashville, so I know all the parts you talk about. I was curious about that because that's where I want the interview to start, because this isn't gonna be a linear interview, by the way, but we're starting that pause in your life, because this is what's, I think, important for all of our listeners to hear and fall in love with you. You need to be relatable, and you, my friend, are relatable. So you spent your time, you sold trucks and vet supplies into farm country. You lived on and do live on a farm, but you also paused your career to chase and raise 3 kids after a divorce.
Chase and raise. I love you said chase and raise, by the way, because that's what you have to do sometimes.
Exactly.
Go on.
So you chased and raised 3 kids. I want to talk about the pause and how long ago that pause was based on now when this album's out. What's the time span in between the two?
So the pause was roughly from 2008 to about 8 years, 2016, something like that, 17, to where I started to really, I put the guitar away for a long time, and just had to do what I had to do. And luckily got remarried in 2015.
Yay.
And she came in and really took on the heavy lifting with kids and helped me out quite a bit. So we got them raised up, and about the time they were, getting a little older, they really encouraged me to get back out and start playing. So, I around that timeline, 2017, 18, I started to kind of put my toe back in the water a little bit here and there, and then eventually, it's just I decided, okay, let's make this thing. Let's get after it if we can, and so it's been a process, getting back into it, and but that pause you talked about, I wouldn't have traded it for anything. I coached Little League, and I got to be involved in every aspect of their lives, whether it be theater productions or dance or whatever, so those memories, those are mine. And, so many times folks that are in this world, in the music music industry or a touring artist, they miss a lot of those moments. And for me, I'm grateful. I didn't miss those moments, and now I'm getting kind of a second run at this thing, and I feel like I'm certainly more mature now, and I feel like I'm a better vocalist now.
Well, let me just say, you said during that time I did what I had to do. That's not what you had to do, because there are people who don't put their kids first. So let me just pat yourself on the back, which you won't do, because we shouldn't have to pat ourselves on the back when we put our kids first, but unfortunately sometimes in this world we do. So let me just say, there's people that get caught up in the glitz and the lights of music and put that first. So you made the pivot.
Sure. Pivot.
And did that, and I believe you were rewarded. You were divinely rewarded to pivot back into music, and that's why you're finding success, because you had the right intentions behind it. So anyway, I just wanted to say that to you.
Well, I appreciate that, and I certainly believe in divine intervention. Absolutely, I'm a Christian and believe in that, and I'm not going to question it. So.
Yeah.
I'm just, I don't, like I said, I don't believe, I wasn't trying to, and I know you're not trying to pat me on the back for just being a parent. I think that should become natural to anyone.
Yeah, no.
All I'm saying is I wouldn't trade those memories for millions. You know what I mean? There's no way I would trade the time I have with my kids to have had attain some sort of fame or fortune. It's just, there's no comparison.
I had an inkling of an idea from reading your bio, but in hearing you talk about it, I actually have an insight into your music, and you can let me know if you agree with me on this, is that, I can't believe I'm saying this. It's actually easier to write in the dumps when people are creating country and Western music. There's a certain kind of ache, a certain kind of loneliness, a certain kind of isolation that often goes into that songs. The only kind of joyful songs you often find in this genre often reside in the kind of wild, abandoned dancing stuff. What's great here about this music is that I am wondering if that time off, if the Little League coaching, if watching them trod the boards, if actually watching the payoffs of parenthood actually allows you to do something that doesn't happen a lot, is that the music, and Lindsay, I think you know what I'm talking about here, the music's joyful. There's a real sense of fun in this music.
Because it's 90s country. We're bringing the Lord's work back, baby.
But it also feels, but like I said, some of that 90s country is kind of like, is really about, is like what I call young country, in the sense a lot of that 90s country stuff feels like the kind of the joys of youth. This feels like the kind of joys that come to people who have earned it. We don't ever talk about hard-earned joy and the idea of being an active parent. That's where I think, and I agree with Lindsay, is that no, everybody should do a good job doing what they should do to take care of their kids. But there's another thing to do the job and to do it joyfully and embrace it the way you kind of talked about it just passionately right now. And I'm just wondering if before and after, before the great gap that often happens there, if in fact what you brought into your second incarnation, third incarnation, is in fact the result of joyfulness. Because, man, these songs are fun. It's fun. And that often can be missing from the best of artists. And this feels like just a really good time. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's a fair statement. I think what I think you hear, what is probably more contentment in the music. Meaning, when I first came to town and when I was first being shopped around to the labels and all that stuff, I was worried about every little aspect, from your shoes to your hat, you know what I mean? All the stuff that really doesn't matter. And when we went to either write the material or, find material from other songwriters, I think I was looking for a consistent theme of just, songs that kind of, that I could relate to and I could deliver. And I wanted songs that would move people emotionally, whether that's joyful, like you're saying, or more like Footprints on the Moon, where it's more of a song about, what's the term I'm looking for? Just inspirational, So for me, I think what you hear is contentment. That I'm really comfortable with who I am, where I am. I'm certainly blessed beyond, all, more than I should be. And I think that's what you hear. I hope that's what you hear when you're saying joy. I would call it contentment.
And taking the word contentment back to be a nice, peaceful thing, not like a settling thing, as I think as I see it,
Right.
Yeah. Well, there's, it took me, I'm from Texas originally, and I grew up on 90s country. So let me tell you, you already know that I love your record. Listening to it driving around the car, I was in a bar room and like a Texas bar room in the 90s in a very content way, not in a getting drunk, being a dum-dum kind of way, in a like, this is awesome. I want a buckle rub. It's a feeling of there's probably longhorns walking down the street outside, and we're in here having a great night. So I love it. And let's talk about the cleverness, because we were early, Dave. Before you came on air, we were talking about the cleverness of your record, which is obviously such a through line here. So especially like that first track, the very first track on the record, Take It Outside. It's such a clever double meaning, such a clever, like the bar, it's, you think it's a bar fight, but it's not. You're talking about getting back to nature when the lyric pivots, getting back to nature. Pivot. I have a song, Dave, called Spin the Bottle. And when the mixer heard it, he thought it was going to be like, spin the bottle, the kids game, but it's not. It's like a beer bottle, and you're spinning the bottle. Am I going to get drunk enough to go home with this person and have kind of a sadder night or not? It was a different kind of meaning. So anyway, I love those double meanings, but I want to know if when you're writing, do those clever meanings, because the kind of clever you're doing, you can't force it. I think it just pops in your head. Anytime I've written anything clever, it showed up, and I've written it down and then realized it was clever before as opposed to trying to make something clever. Are you going after the clever, or does the clever just come to you?
I would say both, to be honest with you. The thing is, I love that clever stuff too, and that's the one thing I love about country humor and country music. There's always that tongue-in-cheek clever. It's never. I don't like the. Well, let me put it this way: I like the clever country music more than I like some of the music that's being promoted today, to where there's no ambiguity at all. It's just straight. We're gonna go get drunk and pass out, girl. I mean, that stuff's terrible, in my opinion.
Your opinion is Your opinion is the correct opinion, by the way.
No, you're talking facts, Dave. Facts. These are facts.
And I hate the fact that they use the word. There's never a mention of a lady's name. It's always just girl. It's just girl, and which drives me crazy too. I just think it's insulting. But so yeah, I do. Some of the things that about country music, I think, for example, farmers and truck drivers and mechanics and blue collar folks are some of the brightest people on the planet, and then so I want the country music to be clever and intelligent. I never want to write or record anything that I feel like is reinforcing negative stereotypes about our genre or our culture. So I try to write and, like I said, and I'll record things that are witty. I'm a witty person. I think I get it from my mother organically, and I want music to be that. There's times where some songs are more serious, more can be more somber. But then there's times like you're saying, Take It Outside, where it has that kind of double. There's kind of that switch, if you will. Cleverness. And I think, that's I think of look at all the Conway Twitty songs, and even though they were on the verge of being raunchy, they were always kind of, it had a little sleight of hand going on, like the slick magician, if you will, and I just think that's something unique about country music. And I think, there's artists out there right now, and I'm not, I'm a fan of Zach Top, and I think some of his music has that cleverness in it. And I think you're seeing, like for him, you're seeing people respond to it in a positive way. And hopefully folks will gravitate towards mine and feel the same.
The Twitty comparison actually is kind of apt, because that's what I kept thinking about, not in regards to, like I said, this is distinctively different stuff, but what Twitty always did too, you make a really good point. There was always a sense of a raised eyebrow, not a sense of get it, but a much more subtle sense of, see what I did there, and just kind of keep going and not.
And if you don't get it, I don't want you listening anyway.
Yeah. Well, actually, with Twitty, it's if you don't get it, fine, give me your money. We're going to get to the smart people around here as well too. But that's really an important part of what makes how to separate this kind of stuff is to make sure that you're not pandering to your audience, that you're actually finding the best in them. And there really is a sense of that too. And I don't mean the best in them and like we're simple folk and we don't need you. No, we're pretty bright people around here. We know what we're talking about. That's a real distinctive issue too, because the other thing that drives me crazy sometimes is what I call cashing in on the lowest common denominator, as if it's okay to be ignorant. No, it's not. There's nothing to celebrate about that. And these songs don't. They celebrate smart, funny, talented people who have daily struggles and also daily joys. And I'm kind of, you brought up Twitty. Can you talk about other people that have made an impact for you? Because I grew up watching watching Opry, watching a whole bunch of other stuff on public television and on the independent channels in the 70s. So who else really kind of lands with you?
You know, I grew up, I had two older brothers and a younger brother. So when I grew up, I grew up in a household where music was playing all the time. You know, I can remember as a young kid going with my parents to Greenwood Mall in Indiana. It's a little town south of Indianapolis, and then picking up a stereo system, you know, and all the time, you know, they'd have everything playing from, Alabama to ABBA, you know, Paul Simon and, you know, the Bee Gees and Kenny Rogers and Dolly and, you know, all kinds of music. And then my brothers were more into the, you know, Kiss and Van Halen and all that stuff. So I kind of heard all kinds of music growing up, but really, you know, early on, you know, James Taylor was a big influence on me, and then, you know, once I kind of found, and I remember Alabama, of course, as a kid hearing Alabama all the time, but you know, Charlie Daniels. But then I think really what I really dug into hard was Merle Haggard and Dwight Yoakam. Alan Jackson, you know, all the names, you know, Alan Jackson, George Strait, all those folks, early Garth Brooks stuff. All of that kind of resonated with me. But I really fell in love with like Buck Owens and Merle Haggard and George Jones and those guys. That Bakersfield sound was really cool or is cool. So all of that, I really liked music that stood the test of time, that had some genuineness to it. That wasn't really, you know, like you knew it was going to last, you know. So all of those influences, all those folks influenced me. I mean, I'm a big Aretha Franklin fan and Ray Charles and, you know, Lionel Richie. Yeah, I mean, my wife would tell you I sing Lionel Richie about every night.
Oh my God! Can I tell you something, man? Easy like Sunday morning is, like I said. I remember growing up in the '80s, Lindsay, and we would wake up after drinking too long, and I had a cousin that would just pop that on. We would sit there kind of quietly in our hangovers. Along with a Bloody Mary, I've quit drinking, by the way, since then. But along with a Bloody Mary, few things get rid of a hangover quicker than either Lionel Richie singing "Sail On" or "Easy Like Sunday Morning." It just lands. It just, even to this day, it's just kind of fantastic. Sorry, that's my own little personal sharing moment there, but I'm with you on Brother Lionel.
I agree.
Brother Lionel is the truth, man. And people forget he wrote a lot of country and western songs for people. He's got a lot of songs under his belt that he wrote for folks. Amazing.
Yeah,
amazing.
I mean, Lady for Kenny Rogers and River Woman, I think it was for Alabama.
Yeah,
I mean, I know that's a couple just off the top of my mind, but so, you know, I listen to a lot of different styles. I do like some grass stuff, so I'll listen to the Steel Drivers that has when Chris Stapleton was still, you know, I listen to those older records when he was, you know, the front man. Of course, he's someone I'll listen to. But yeah, there's a whole lot of Luther Vandross. I mean, I listen to Luther quite a bit, just because I love really great vocalists. So like, you know, Keith Whitley and you know, Joe Diffie and Daryl Singletary. Those three, in my opinion, were probably the best pure country vocalists of all time. Just their I love the timbre of their voice and the quality of it and the range. You know, Conway Twitty was an incredible vocalist as well. So, you know, I've always been drawn to, you know, great vocalists. Merle Haggard's a great vocalist. I mean, way underrated, but great vocalist.
Lindsay.
Well, since we're listing vocalists, I'd like to list mine. Dave Wilbert, guys. We're talking to Dave Wilbert. You can go to Dave Wilbert Music, WILBERT music.com, because I guarantee you, Jimmy, as you already know, this is the kind of record that'll help get you a little further down the road after you listen to the 12 tracks on this album. And I want to know, Dave, because you said that you kept even through the pause, as we're calling it, the great pause of 2008 until 18 or whatever, you kept a guitar on the back porch for when buddies came over. And and I like that it never went that didn't go away. I'm wondering if the buddies on the porch, if they get an album credit for getting you back into the studio from your porch to studio pipeline there. But what song on the album to you? What song on the album most sounds like that porch? Sounds like the most raw and real from the porch to the record.
Well, there's an acoustic track at the very end. It's like a bonus track. It's called the Cabin Song that I wrote. I wrote that long ago, actually. You know, and I wrote it when the girls were little, and that's definitely a kind of that back porch, you know, bonfire track. It's really raw, but I've you know, people in my circle know the song and have always requested it and wanted me to put it out put it down on some sort of, you know, digital and or vinyl, you know, product. But so I would say that's one. You know, Close Your Eyes and You'll Miss It. That's a song that you know, that song was written about anywhere in small town USA. I didn't write it. A buddy of mine wrote that song, but I lived it. You know, I've had that song in my back pocket for a long, long, long time, and I've played it a million times, and it never fails to deliver. You know what I mean? So I would say those two.
Awesome. I love it. And do you credit your buddies? Were they a part of the process of you getting your swagger back, Stella getting her groove back to get back to making music?
Well, I have one friend for sure. He, you know, unfortunately he was hurt real bad in an ATV wreck, so he was actually paralyzed from the waist down. He was going through some tough times, and you know, he liked to bang around on a guitar, and so I thought, you know, let's go out and play some. This was during that pause period, and so we found a little Mexican joint down in Spring Hill, and we used to do tunes and tacos, you know, a couple times a month. So we just sit in and play acoustic. It was rough, you know, but it kept me kind of, you know, like I said, just kind of, you know, with my toes in the water, so to speak. And yeah, so I think, you know, him encouraging me to, you know, let's go out and play together and let's just, you know, do something, even if it's just for, which it was just for fun, and music should be just for fun, but with no pressure. You know, there was no expectations. We weren't trying to play for A&R people or label people or anything like that. You know, we were just going out and making a joyful noise, if you will. So, you know, I think, yeah, if I had to credit somebody, it'd be Scott.
Love that.
I'm going to ask you. Let's pivot here a second, Lindsay.
Pivot.
I wanted to ask you about, because you told me you're a Merle Haggard fan. There's a terrific video, video of him doing impersonations of every other famous country and Western music star at the time he was around, and it's like spot on. And I was just kind of curious if you've ever done that. If you have, because you know, Lindsay's got some friends who actually will sing like other people. Lindsay does it really well too. Is there anybody that you've ever done a really great impersonation of from a?
I mean, your album title mimics Saturday Night Live, so you've got to have at least one impersonation in your back pocket.
I can do just about anybody I want, and I don't mean to sound that arrogantly, but just about.
John Anderson. Come on, that's a weird one. Do it.
That's not fair.
No.
There's a little girl down our neighborhood.
Yes.
I had a feeling from listening to the album, Lindsay, after he's mentioned Merle Haggard, I said, I bet you he can do impersonations. I bet you this guy can do impersonations.
Well, and John
I'm
Anderson
really
is the weirdest one, with all respect, because he's also incredible. Straight Tequila Night, hands down, one of the best country songs ever. Fight me if you want. But what about Tracy Lawrence? Can you sing a little Tracy?
Oh, yeah. Hold on. Let's see, which song do I want to do? You can take the house and anything in it. Keep it down rain. That's how I meant it.
Yes. As long as it's 90s country, he has got you covered.
This is the finest question I have ever asked on this show.
Nelly, now do Snoop Dogg.
No, I can't do that.
Just kidding.
He lost me there.
I think
So good.
I think Snoop Dogg lost himself there at that moment too. Okay.
I lost.
So where are you headed next? Where are you going? What are you doing? Where's the next destination? I'm talking about immediately. Where's the next place you're headed to?
Immediately?
Yeah.
Next week I'm headed to immediately I'm headed to Florida on Friday. Headed to Florida on Friday. Headed to Columbus, Ohio next week. And then hopefully going north Nashville to do a little taping of a thing, trying to put together kind of like a promotional little video clip in North Nashville, either at the Palace or the Nashville. I think it's the Palace. I may be speaking wrong here. And then after that, Fort Walton Beach. So that's what's coming up immediately.
I love that. First, I was just thinking about the Palace right before you said the Palace, because when you were singing those songs, I thought of, and when you were talking about tacos and tunes, I thought about, Dave, when I first moved to town 18 years ago, and I sang at the Nashville Palace, me and a guitar player, during lunch. There was, on a good day, 4 people there, like nobody there, but we just got to sing whatever we wanted, country, and just do everything from, Keith Whitley, like you're talking about, and up to Faith Hill or whatever, and just sing songs. So you've inspired so much joy, and I think you're, if you could leave us with like a piece of, I guess, advice or inspiration for those truck drivers out there listening, we've got about a minute left. What would you say to them that if you want to do something, now's the time to start, whatever it is? What can you say to our truck driving audience?
Well, I think, I have a lot of respect. I worked for Peterbilt Motors in another life, so I have a lot of respect for the trucking industry, truck drivers, men and women out there, and I don't think, one, they may be living their dream. They may be always have wanted to be in, a line haul or a trucker or, doing heavy equipment hauling or construction hauling, dump trucks and all that stuff. So I'm not here to pass judgment on what they're currently doing, because it may be what they want to do. That being said, if they do have other aspirations, there's no. I don't think dreams have an expiration date. I don't think goals have goals or goals. We can all. I'm coming back into the game certainly later. More mature, I would say, in my life. But I don't care. I'm not held up by silly obstacles that man puts in my place, because I know if it's God's plan, it'll happen. So, and I'm, like I said, I think just being content with what you're doing, and if you're not content with what you're doing, go down another road. One of my favorite lines there's actually an Eric Clapton song that Winona did, was a dead end's just a place to turn around, So, well, there you go.
Beautiful. Way to nail it. It's time to turn around, unfortunately, on this show, but such a pleasure talking to you. Everyone head on over, please, to DaveWilbertMusic.com. The record is out now, live from America. It's Saturday night. Download it. Don't just stream it. Download it. Add it to your playlist. You're killing it, Dave. Congratulations. Thanks for being here.
Good to have you on.